Welcome back to another class on Gemara Journey with Rashi. We are continuing in Masecht Berachot Daf Dalet amud Aleph. This will be part 5 of the Shi'ur. We are continuing from where we left off yesterday, and still on that topic where David HaMelech says, Shamro Nafshi Ki Chasid Ani. We are continuing where David is still continuing to say, while he is still a Chasid. The Gemara begins 7 lines down from the wide line in the middle of the Gemara, beginning with the words Vilo'od. And not only, David HaMelech continues and he says, and not only did I go ahead and I check the blood of the woman and the Shilia and the Shapir to make her tahor to her husband, Ela rather, Kol Masha Ani Oseh, rather anything that I would do, Ani Nimlach b'mipiboshet Rebbe. I would go and I would consult with Mipiboshet, my teacher. Ve'omerlo, and I would say to him, Mipiboshet Rebbe, Mipiboshet, my teacher. Yafeh Danti, did I judge the case well? Yafeh Chiyavti, did I make the person liable well? Yafeh Zikiti, did I do good by making him privileged in that case? Yafeh Teharti, did I do good by making it pure? Yafeh Temeti, did I do good by making it tameh? Velo bosh, and David HaMelech says, and I was not ashamed. Comes the Gemara, and the Gemara is telling us another piece right now. Yesterday, we've been learning from Levi and Rabbi Yitzchak that according to one of them, David HaMelech says, am I not a chassid? While all the other kings sleep till the 3rd hour of the day, I get up at chatzot. Am I not a chassid? While all the other kings are having a good time, they're eating, they're enjoying themselves, while I'm here checking Dam Nida, the Shilia, and the Shapir. But now comes David HaMelech and he says even something even more than that. He says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, am I not a chassid that anything I would do, I would go and I would consult my teacher Mipiboshet, and I was not ashamed. Doesn't that make me a chassid? Rabotai, we have to understand what's going on over here. David HaMelech was kulo Torah. David HaMelech, his whole being was Torah. David HaMelech, he knew Torah back and forth like your hand. And still, what did David HaMelech do? He would go and he would consult his teacher. And he was not ashamed. That, Rabotai, is greatness. Is that not somebody who is pious? Is that not somebody who is a chassid? That's what David HaMelech is telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Am I not a chassid for always consulting with my teacher, even though I was kula Torah? I'm a king, and I have to go consult with somebody? That, Rabotai, is greatness. Look into Rashi. Rashi is going to tell us right now the terminology that we used. Zikiti, Vichiyavti, Timeti, V'taharti, all these 4 words, you have to understand where are these words used, in which cases. So he says, Zikiti v'chiyavti, shaykh b'dinei mamonot, v'dinei nefashot. When we're using the words zikiti and chiyavti, they are relevant to monetary laws. They are relevant to people laws. When you're using the language of timeti v'teharti, those laws are relevant bihilchot tuma v'tahara, in laws of tuma and tahara. So that's all. Rashi just brings us down over here. Whenever you use the word zakai, chayav, tameh, tahor, he's telling you should know on which case is being judged. Continues the Gemara says, Am Rabbi Yeshua b'reid Rav Idi, Rabbi Yeshua, the son of Rav Idi, said, Maikra. What is the verse? The 3rd time we see where the Gemara brings down those words. What is the verse that's going to prove to us that David was not ashamed when it came to Torah? He says, because the pasuk says, "Va'adebra be'edutech," I will speak about your laws, neged melachim, against the kings. We'll see someone actually translate malachim over here. It doesn't mean kings. It can also mean talmidei chachamim. It means the chachmei Torah. Velo evosh, and he says, I was not ashamed. So we see clearly over here that David HaMelech was not ashamed when it came to Torah. If we look into Torah or Shalom, he says, go look into Tehillim, Kuv Yutet Mem Vav. So let's go look over there in the back. In Kuv Yutet Mem Vav, I have it on page Yud Zayin in the Sefer HaMikraot. He says, what does it mean, Va'adeber? What was David HaMelech saying when he said, I will speak about your laws against the Malachim and I will not be embarrassed? What is this going on? So comes the commentary and he says, this is what David HaMelech said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ka'asher ta'azreni, when you're going to help me, lahagia el ha'emet, to reach the emet, b'chokhmat HaTorah, in the wisdom of the Torah, adaber behem neged melachim, I will speak in them against the malachim. Who are the malachim? Chachmei HaTorah, the wise men of Torah. V'lo evosh, and I will not be ashamed. Why will I not be ashamed? Ki yihiyu devarai tzodkim, because my words, they're going to be the emet, they're going to be the righteous. Those words are going to be the correct words. So if we go back over here, now we can understand when Rabbi Yeshua, the son of Rabbi Idi, says, what is the verse that proves to us that David HaMelech was not ashamed when he came to Torah? Because the pasuk says, "Va'adebera be'edotecha neged malachim v'lo evosh." Continues the Gemara, and the Gemara says, Tana, it was taught, Lo mipiboshet shemo. His name was not mipiboshet. You know, before we do the Gemara, let's try to do the Rashi. Look into Rashi where he says mipiboshet. You guys have it? Dibra matchil, mipiboshet. Rashi goes ahead in the brackets and he breaks up the name of mipiboshet into two. He says mipi and then he says boshet. So let's do like this. I don't have my blackboard with me here, but let's do like this. Rashi goes ahead and he says the name Mipiboshet, don't spell it together. Don't spell it as one. Break the name up. Mipi Boshet. Now Rashi is going to go and explain to you why was he called, meaning why is the name called Mipiboshet? What are we learning out when we divide them into two? So he says like this. B'divri halacha hayutzin mipiv, with the words of halacha that would come out from his mouth, mipiv, from his mouth, haya boshet leDavid. It was an embarrassment to David HaMelech. See what I did? Mipi boshet. From the halachot that would come out from Mipi Boshet's mouth, Mipi Boshet, it was an embarrassment. It was shameful to David HaMelech. That's why Rabbotai will see, the Gemara is going to say, that's why he was called Mipi Boshet. Because when he would teach halachot, he would embarrass David HaMelech. Let's read it in Rashi. From the words of the halakha that would come out from Mipi Boshet's mouth, it was an embarrassment to David HaMelech. Why? Because at times David HaMelech would make a mistake, and he would tell him, you made a mistake. So we see from Avira Botai that David HaMelech was ashamed. So Mipi Boshet's name actually resembles that. Mipi, from his mouth came out halachot that would go ahead and it would embarrass David HaMelech. Let's go back into the Gemara now. Now we'll see this inside the Gemara. Tana, it was taught, Lo Mipi Boshet Shemo. Not that his name was Mipi Boshet. Eila, rather his name was Ish Boshet Shemo. Rather his name was Ish Boshet. Take it like that. Ish Boshet. Ish means man, Boshet means shame. But his real name was Ish Boshet. If you look into the Haggadah V'Tzinim in Od Gimel, he tells you someone to learn Ish Bal. His name was Esh Bal. Whatever, there's different versions of what he was called. But let's just stick with the Gemara's language. So he says over here, Lo Mipi Boshet Shemo, not that Mipi Boshet was his name, Ela rather, Ish Boshet Shemo, rather his name was Ish Boshet. Oh, so if his name was Ish Boshet, Velama Nikra Shemo Mipi Boshet. So why was his name called Mipi Boshet if his name was really Ish Boshet? So the Gemara says, Shehaya Mivayesh Pnei David Behalacha. because he would embarrass the face of David when he came to halacha. Mephibosheth was so well versed in halacha that, like we saw in Rashi, that when David HaMelech would make a mistake, he would tell him, "You made a mistake," and that would embarrass David HaMelech. But listen to the next statement. Lefichach, the Gemara says. Look into Rashi. Lefichach, therefore, b'zechut sheyad David maktin atzmo. In the merit that David HaMelech would make himself smaller by going to Mephibosheth and asking him, "Am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong?" And so on and so forth. And then Mephibosheth would embarrass him by telling him that this is wrong or right, whatever the situation would have been. Zacha, David had the merit. V'yatza mimenu Kilav, came out from David HaMelech a son by the name of Kilav. Look what the Gemara now says. Lefichach, therefore. So you have to integrate, you have to bring in the rashi into the lefichach over here. Lefichach, so you're going to say like this. Therefore, from the fact that David HaMelech, he made himself smaller by going to Mephibosheth and asking him if what he was doing was correct or not, and then when Mephibosheth would embarrass him, Zacha David had the zechut, the merit, v'yatza mimenu Kilav, and came out from him Kilav. Ve'amar Rabbi Yochanan said, Lo Kilav Shemo, his name was not Kilav, Ela Daniel Shemo, really David's son's name was Daniel. Ve'lama Nikra Shemo Kilav, so if his name is Daniel, why was his name called Kilav? She'aya machlim pinei Mephibosheth b'halacha, because now he would go ahead and he would embarrass the face of Mephibosheth in halacha. Rabotai, look into Rashi where it says Ela Daniel Shemo. B'makom echad omer, in one place it states U'mishinehu Kilav la'Avigail eshet Naval v'gomer, and from his second son was Kilav, who was from the wife of Avigail, who was the wife of Naval. You can ask yourself, of course, I don't get it. If David HaMelech is married to Avigail, how can the pasuk tell us that she was the wife of Naval? Very simple. Avigail was married to Naval. When Naval died, she became a widow. Now when she's a widow, David took her as his wife. So Daniel's mother, which is Kilav, his mother was Avigail. In another place it says, V'hasheni, the second son that was born to David HaMelech, Daniel la'Avigail. It was Daniel to his wife Avigail, because David HaMelech had multiple wives. So he's telling you that which son was born to which mother. B'divrei Yamim is brought down in Divrei Yamim. So we see over here that really his name was Daniel, but he was called Kilav. How do we know? Because in one place it says Kilav when his mother was Avigail. Another place it says no, Daniel and his mother is Avigail. So we see Kilav and Daniel are interchangeable. So if we look into Rashi, where Rashi says Shaya machlim penei Mephibosheth, because David HaMelech, excuse me. Shaya machlim penei Mephibosheth, because Kilav, he would go ahead and he would embarrass, he would shame the face of Mephibosheth. So now we're going to take we're going to take the word Kilav and we're going to break it up. Rashi breaks it up into two. Kilav. We're going to see it right now. Instead of saying Kilav, it was Kilav. Basically, he shamed the father. We'll see this inside. It says like this. Kilav. What does that mean? Why was his name called Kilav? Because he would embarrass, he would shame the face of Mephibosheth. So Rashi says, Machlim et, you see there's an od bet, you have to look into Hagaot HaBach. Over there he says you have to add the word Pinei. So we're going to read it with the word Pinei. Machlim et Pinei Harav. He would go and he would shame the face of David HaMelech's teacher. Why was he called Kilav with the second letter Av? Why do we have to say Av? Because remember, we already said Kil was he would shame David Melech's teacher, which was the Rav. But why did he need the Av? So Rashi tells you, Shehaya Av behoraot, because the Rav, David Melech's teacher, was the Av in Horaot. He was the father when it came to halachot, when it came to making Pesach halacha. So Rabotai, we see from over here a very important concept. David HaMelech had the zuchut of having a son as humongous as Kilav, who was a bigger Talmud Chacham than Mipiboshet. And Mipiboshet was the father of teaching, he was the father of halachot. And somehow came Kilav and he became greater than him because he was embarrassing him in halachot. That means when Mipiboshet would say something, now Kilav would tell him, that's not the halacha. That's not what it says. Now he would do back to what he did to his father. What Mipiboshet did to his father David, Kilav did back to Mipiboshet. But what zechut did he have in order for him to have such a son? It's not Rabotai. What zechut? The zechut of making oneself smaller, not answering back. Shtika yafa lechachamim. Silence, Rabotai. שהקטין, שהיה בזכות שהיה דוד מקטין עצמו, זכה ויצא ממנו כלאב. In the merit of David HaMelech, he would make himself small by going and asking his teacher, am I doing right or wrong? He had the zechut and came from him, Kilav. A lot of times we are afraid to ask this and that. Rabotai, the secret in growth is asking Talmidei Chachamim, what do you think? What am I understanding this correctly? Is this correctly? Is this halacha? Am I understanding it correctly? And so on and so forth. It is so important to learn with another Talmid Chacham. We think we know it all. We listen to a few shurim, we know it. We think we see a book in English or we read some pamphlets, we know it. I'm not telling you it's bad, it's good. But did you really understand it? I teach Baruch Hashem B'lei Hara Gemara classes. Besides halacha, I also teach Gemara classes. And some people like to use the art scroll, which is fine. I'm not against art scroll. But did you guys ever use the art scroll? Did you ever see the art scroll? Did you see that the language that they use over there sometimes can be SAT words? So I could be having this Gemara, I could be learning inside the Gemara, I'm learning the Rashi. You could have a guy with there screaming out, Rabbi, I've prepared for this thing the past 6 hours. He walks in English, you already got it. So I sit there and I tell him, that's not pshat. Then he says, what do you mean? I'm reading it to you. I'm like, you could read whatever you want, but you don't understand what you're saying. After I go with them through the Rashi, literally word for word in Rashi, I explain to him, this is the reaction. Ah, now I understand. Now I understand what they're saying. Because Rabotai, it's one thing to read. It's another thing to put everything together and to understand it. But a person who has ga'ava, a person who thinks he knows it all, why should he go and ask? For what reason? He thinks he got it all. And that's why he'll never grow. There was once, I don't know if you guys know, Rabbi Chaim, he learned with Rav Tzadka in the morning. And I used to learn in Tov. I used to sit in the corner, I used to learn in Tov. And he used to have a group, like literally he used to have at least 8 to 10 people. A genius, Mama's a genius. And I used to get stuck over here, I used to get stuck and I just couldn't get it. Forget about understanding what I was learning. I just didn't understand the English. Like trying to translate the Hebrew into the English is hard because you have to make sense with it also. It's not just to translate it. Now you have to also put it into the context. So I would go to him and I would ask him in the middle of his class, I would stand there until he stopped and then he would call me over and I would ask him, say, I don't understand, what does this mean? He would explain it to me or sometimes he would tell me to wait after he finished the class. But after a good time, he came up to me one time when I came up to him and before he left, he says, can I tell you something? And I'm talking about maybe 15 years now. He came up to me and he says, I want to tell you something, he says. People like this that are not concerned about their honor. Again, I'm not praising myself. I'm just showing you guys how to become great, how to become big in Torah, in Avodat Hashem. He came to me, Rabbi Chaim, and he said, you should know, the fact that you come up to me in the middle of my class and you don't care if you're going to be ashamed, you ask me questions that they know, because he speaks in Hebrew. You ask me things that people know already, and you're not ashamed. He said, how Chazal promised. Again, at that time, I wasn't learning Gemara, I didn't even know, I was just learning. He said that Chazal promised when a person is not ashamed, like it says, Ein Ama'aris Chasid ve'en Bur Yerechet. And Ama'aris, you can never be Chasid, you can never be pious. And a Bur, an ignoramus person, can never have fear Shamayim, because you have to go ahead and you have to ask. He said, you, all the time you come and you ask, not one time, but as long as he said, I could come up and I would ask him. He said to me, you will see this is the words he used. You will see the Siyata, the Shemaya, the heavenly assistant that Hashem is going to give you in your learning Torah. He says, you're going to see. At that time, I was like, I was blind. Like, no, Rabbi, it's okay, Rabbi. I'm not here for, what Talmud Chacham. Who's talking about Talmud Chacham? I just started learning what Talmud Chacham. Again, never did I believe in my wildest dreams that one day I'm going to be able to sit and learn Gemara with Rashi, Rishonim, Achronim, and Shulchan Aruch. Never in my wildest dreams. But now, Rabotai, we see it over here why. We see clearly, Rabotai, why. David HaMelech, the fact that he was not concerned about being ashamed, and he went and he asked. But David HaMelech, Rabotai, I'm not comparing the two, we're not. But look what Hashem rewarded him with. A son, because since David had all the Torah, Hashem rewarded David HaMelech with a son that's greater and bigger than Mipiboshet. Now he was embarrassing him. All for what? Because he minimized his honor. He minimized himself. He made himself small. And he went and he asked the rabbi, what do you think? Rabotai, this is the Derech Torah. This is the way we have to go ahead in learning Torah. Even if you think you understand something, don't be quick. Ask, review, see again and again. Did you really understand it? Don't expect to understand things from one shot. It takes time, Rabotai, until it sinks in. That's why Chazal tell us minimum 4 times. That's if you look at Rashi, if you look into Rashi and Tosfot, they give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And Rashi, there's the first 4 beginning lines before it starts indenting. Tosfot, first 4 beginning lines before it starts indenting. In order to start understanding Rabotai, you have to go back and over and over and over again. In any event, we see from over here the importance of how to minimize oneself and not be afraid and not be ashamed to ask the rabbi, to ask the Talmidei Chachamim. You don't understand something, go ask. Okay, Rabotai, let's continue. Let's finish with the Pasukim. He says it like this. Ve'alav amar Shlomo bechochmoto, and on him, Shlomo Melech said in his great wisdom, Beni, my son, im hacham libecha, if your heart is wise, yismach libi, my heart will be happy, gamani, and also I. V'omer, so to the pasuk says, hacham beni, my wise son, va'atzmach libi, make my heart happy, va'ashiva chorfi davar, so I will be able to answer back to the people that shamed me. Rabotai, let's see these 2 pasukim in the back. One of them has nothing on it, but we'll still do it. It's in Torah or Shalom in Ot Vav and Ot Zayin. We're going to look into Mishlei Chav Gimel Tet Vav. Chav Gimel Tet Vav. Tet Vav. Chav Gimel Tet Vav. Here we go. Tet Vav. I have it on page Yud Chet. He said like this. Again, there's no commentary. It's very simple. He says, Bini. So these verses Shlomo Melech was saying, the Gemara said that Shlomo Melech would say these verses, basically, when he was referring to these verses, he was speaking about a person like Kil'av, that was able to make his father happy. So he said like this, Bini, my son, im hacham libicha, if your heart is wise, yismach libi, my heart will be happy, gamani, and also I will be happy. That's one verse. The other verse we're going to see in Mishlei Chavzayin Yud Aleph. Chavzayin Yud Aleph. I have it on page Yutet. He says, Hacham bini, be wise, my son. V'samach libi, and cause my heart to be happy with you. V'ashiva chorfi davar, so I may answer the ones who shame me. Because remember, David HaMelech was shamed, so this really goes on Kilav. So the commentary says over here, what does it mean, Chacham bini? Hit chacham bini, become wise, my son. Utiheh libi samech b'cha, so my heart should be happy in you. Ve'uchal lahashiv b'davar cherpa asher yicharfeni. He says, and I will be able to reply back to somebody who embarrassed me. Ki im tiyeh sechel, because if you're going to be a fool, ba'al korchi, against my will, asom yad lepe, I will place my hand on my mouth. Ki efchad shelo yigalem umecha, because I will be afraid not to reveal your blemish, that you don't know anything. So we see over here from this Gemara, when the Gemara says over here, Ve'alav amar Shlomo bechokmato, and on him Shlomo said in his great wisdom, an Kilav, Bini, my son, im hacham libecha, if your heart is wise, yismach libi, my heart will be happy, gam ani, and also I. Ve'omer, and so the pasuk says, Hacham bini v'samach libi v'ashiva chorfi davar. Hacham bini, become wise, my son. V'samach libi, and let my heart be happy. Make me happy through your wisdom. V'ashiva chorfi davar, and I will be able to answer back to people that shame me. Rabotai, we're going to conclude over here. But in the following class, we're going to start seeing, the Gemara is going to go now into a different question. And the Gemara is going to discuss, V'David mikari l'nafshi chassid. Did David really call himself a chassid? Could it be that all this that we were learning up to now, where David says, Shomer nafshi ki chassid ani, guard myself because I'm pious. How can David the Melech say that he's a chassid? But in Bezrat Hashem, we'll start seeing that in the following class. But today, Rabotai, let's just go back and do a small chazara. V'lo od, and not only did I do what the other kings didn't do, ela rather, kol ma she'ani oseh, anything that I would do, ani nimlach b'mipiboshet Rebbe, I would go and I would consult with Mipiboshet, my teacher. Ve'omer lo, and I would say to him, Mipiboshet Rebbe, Mipiboshet, my teacher, Yafeh danti, Yafeh chiyavti, Yafeh zakiti, Yafeh tiharti, Yafeh timeti, velo boshti. He would tell him, did I judge the case well? Did I make him liable well? Did I give him the proper privilege? Did I do good by making it tahor? Did I do good by making it tameh? And I was not ashamed. Amar Rabbi Yeshua bered Rav Idi. Amar Rabbi Yeshua bered Rav Idi. Rabbi Yeshua, the son of Rav Idi, said, Maikra, what is the verse that proves to us that when it came to Torah, David the Melech was not ashamed? Because the pasuk says, "Va'adibra be'edotecha neged malachim v'lo evosh." I will speak about your laws against the Chachmei Yisrael, against the wise men of Israel, and I will not be ashamed. Tana, it was taught, Lo mipiboshet shemo. His name was not Mipiboshet, Ela, rather Ishboshet shemo. Rather, his name was Ishboshet. V'lama nikra shemo Mipiboshet. Why was his name called Mipiboshet? Like we saw in Rashi, because it was divided into two words. Shehaya mivayesh pinei David b'halacha, because he would embarrass the face of David in halacha. Lefichach, therefore, since David, he went and he minimized himself. He made himself smaller, like Rashi said, very important Rashi. Shehaya David maktin atzmo, because David, he would make himself small by not being ashamed, by asking questions, even though at the expense of being embarrassed. Shaya David maktin atzmo, from the fact that David would make himself small, Zachar David the Melech had the merit, v'yatza mimenu kilav, and came out from him kilav. V'amar Rabbi Yochanan said, Lo kilav shemo, his name was not kilav, ela Daniel shemo, but rather his name was Daniel. V'lama nikra shemo kilav, and why was his name called kilav? Shaya machlim pnei mipiboshet b'chalacha, because he would embarrass the face, or better yet, he would shame the face of Mipiboshet in halacha, like we saw Rashi said, Kil Av. Kil Av. Two separate words. shame of the father who was the teacher of everything, of all the halachot. Ve'alav amar Shlomo b'chokhmato, and Shlomo said in his great wisdom on David Melech and his son, Beni im hacham libecha yismach libi gamani. My son, if your heart is wise, I will be happy in my heart, also I. Ve'omer, and also the pasuk says, Chacham beni, become smart, my son, ve'samach libi, and let my heart be happy. Ve'ashiva chorfi davar, and I'll be able to answer people back that shame me. Rabotai, have a great day. Baruch Adonai Olam. Amen ve'amen.